Turn up your radio. It's time for DeLorean Talk with your host, Dave Tavers.
Hi, and welcome to DeLorean Talk. This is episode number 10. Thanks for joining us. My name is Dave Tavers. I'm VIN number 10515, and it's been a little bit of a break since the last episode. I've been busy, and it's been a little difficult to get people to commit to joining me on the show. So if you are interested or you have a good story or some great connection with the car, please feel free to send an email, comments@DeLoreanTalk.com, and would love to have you on, and we can talk for 10 minutes or an hour, whatever works for you. Today, I'm happy to have Justin Webb on the line with me. Hi, Justin.
Hi.
How you doing?
No, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming. What's your VIN number?
My VIN number is 16426.
16. So is that an 83?
It is an 83. Yeah, it's an 83. I'm not quite sure because I know the 83's numbers get mixed up here and there, like how many were made and all that. So I'm not really sure how close that is to the bottom of the list of cars that were built. But
where do you live actually? What part of the country?
I'm from Ohio, Central Ohio area.
Oh, do you know Kevin Crin?
I know Kevin very well. I actually, well, I don't know about very well, but the Ohio Club had a car show, annual meeting car show not too long ago that got rained out, unfortunately. But Kevin was up there with the president, Josh, and all that stuff, and I actually had to give him a ride over to his truck so he could bring the trailer over to put his car back up on the trailer. So.
Nice. I met Kevin last year at DeLorean Weekend and clicked, and we've been buddies since, and I'm always excited to talk to him and hear how his progress is going with his car. So, and it sounds like he's getting pretty close.
Yeah, he's got some crazy stuff going on with the car.
Yeah.
That's just really cool, all the stuff that he's doing to it.
Yeah, amazing that he just jumped into it. He doesn't have a background in software development or even cars necessarily, and he's gone full force. Everybody at DeLorean Weekend was, I think, amazed at what him and one of the other members had done with their digital dash projects, and very exciting. So that's awesome. You're in Ohio. You're one of the Midwest guys you're near the old Consolidated.
Yeah, I'm about 40 minutes outside of Columbus. Where that was specifically located, I mean, I couldn't be sure of, but
you're there with a lot of other DeLorean owners who sometimes I think that's why there's so many DeLoreans in that area, is because that warehouse was there.
It very well could be. I mean, I know I talked to obviously when you go to the car shows, you'll talk to dozens, if not hundreds of people. But there was one guy I talked to, very nice guy, who was asking a lot of questions about the car and everything. And he actually told me, because Consolidated is actually big lots or odd lots, depending on what part of the country you're in. And he was actually saying he remembers when, shortly after, the company had gone into receivership and all that, and Consolidated took over, he actually remembers there being DeLoreans parked outside the local big lots.
Oh, wow.
For promotional purposes or whatnot, something of that nature. And I was just like, oh, wow. I never saw that. I mean, I'm still a young guy, though, so that was probably back in like 83 or 84, and I wasn't even around yet. So.
Wow. So you said that you are a new owner. How long have you had your car?
I technically will be coming up. I've owned the car for just a shade over a year now. I did not take delivery of the car until about 10 days ago last year.
Oh, so you had your 1 year anniversary, 1 year and 10 days.
Right at, yeah.
Awesome. Very cool. So you've already had the opportunities to drive it and have people taking pictures on the freeway and talking to you at gas stations.
Oh man, the first day I had it, it literally came off the truck, and because I live in the country, I didn't want the car hauler to have to come down my road where it's a little narrow and only farmers dwell. And so I told him, I'm like, well, there's a big grocery store in town, which is literally like 10 minutes from me. And I'm like, why don't you just unload there? That way you got lots of room, easy access to the U.S. highways again. And he's like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. I appreciate that. And I'm like, well, I'm a car hauler myself, so I understand.
Oh, wow.
So literally got it off the truck, did the whole routine check underneath, make sure there was no damage done to the vehicle from the driver's aspect, obviously.
Right.
Literally drove it right home, and me and my buddy, because he had hit a nasty dust storm on the way over here, so the car was just filthy, red sand covered everywhere.
Oh, it was an exterior haul. It wasn't an inside of a truck, inside of a box.
No, it wasn't. It was the whole car hauling story itself is a headache of what happened and how it went down. Had I had to be able to do it different, I would have just taken my car out to California, rented a trailer, loaded it up, and drove it back myself.
Yeah.
At the time when I did the math for cost and everything, it was literally going to be a difference of a couple of $100 between the two. Yeah. And at that point,
well, then you're talking about
like,
your time. It's not just the dollars.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Your time. Yeah.
I have to take some time off work, and you know, and that would have been fine. It was just like, oh, the headache of it.
Yeah.
I just let them do it, and that was just a nightmare. 3 guys who were supposed to pick up the car refused to take delivery of the car.
Why? Because it was a DeLorean or something else?
One guy was afraid that the first guy that came along, he could barely speak English, so the seller who I purchased it from was trying to translate for me. And basically from the gist of what we got from it, he did not have a deck open on top of the truck, so it would have to go on the bottom, which is fine, except for the fact that he was scared to death that the doors weren't gonna fit. So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So he ended up just chalking that whole. He's just like, I'm not taking it. You'll have to find somebody else.
Yeah.
So I called the broker and let him know. The second guy that came along, who said, oh, yeah, I'll pick it up Friday. You'll have it by next Friday. No worries. And I'm like, all right, cool. And this is like 2 weeks after the purchase, keep in mind. So I'm already chomping at the bit to get my car, you know?
Right.
And he just never showed up. And I guess when the broker finally tried to get hold of him, like, hey, where are you at? Like, you were supposed to be here yesterday. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's not going to happen. I'm in Minnesota.
Bad customer service.
Right. So now I'm getting a little perturbed about it. And I'm like, look, this car needs to be on a truck from a reputable driver
right.
coming out to Ohio in 48 hours, or I'm pulling the contract with you guys and I'm finding somebody else.
Yeah.
So finally they found a guy. Stereotypical California guy, long bleached blonde hair, you know, talk like this, you know. Really nice guy, but I talked to him on the phone. He's like, all right, what do I need to know about the car? And I'm like, well, I'm a car hauler. I'm going to make your job real easy. It can't be backed on the truck. You can't use chains on it. It's going to have to be strapped at all 4 wheels or tires. And like I said, it can't be backed on. Preferably, if I were you, I'd put it on top if you have space. He's like, done and done.
Nice.
Guy came out. He had to move it a couple of times for other vehicles along his way, you know.
Sure.
2,200-mile journey. I'm sure he had other stops along the way.
Yeah.
So anyway, he got it to me, safe and sound, but he hit a nasty dust storm in New Mexico or something, and the car was just filthy. So we, like I said, we got it home after he delivered it, and we washed it real quick, and me and my buddy, he's a gearhead, you know, he's just kind of going over it. He's like, man, look at this and look at that, all this, you know, and
fun.
And finally, I'm like, well, do you want to go for a drive? He's like, finally, good Lord, dude, we've been talking for a half hour, you know. He's like, come on. And I was like, on the way home, I'm like, well, it needs gas, so we'll just go to the gas station. First day I had it, and trust me, I had been a member of the DeLorean Club for a year prior to the purchase, or actually 2 years prior almost to the purchase. So, because I was getting a feel for the community and everything.
Yeah.
And you've
got a good community there in Ohio. You're lucky.
Yeah. No, they're they're a great bunch of people. Like I said, I enjoy getting to see them when I can't get to see them. Events, just how events get. It gets busy for everybody. So
yeah.
But yeah, so I already kind of had an idea, like, oh yeah, you're gonna feel like a rock star, man. Like, you can't go anywhere in this car. Like, if you're wanting privacy, buy a Focus. Don't buy this.
Right.
So, all right, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm used to the attention. That's fine. And we drove it up to the local gas station up here. I didn't even have it parked for 2 minutes, and a guy jumped out of a moving van to take a picture of this car. And it was funny because, like, I heard the wheels screech, this guy in a little minivan come pulling, like, barreling into the fuel stop, and he just slings that sliding door open and jumps out. The car's not stopped yet. I'm like, dude, are you okay? He's like, dude, is that a DeLorean? And I'm like, yeah, it is. But are you okay? Like, you hit your knee on the concrete, man. That had to hurt. So,
that's
yeah,
awesome.
Right off the bat, I'm like, wow, okay, yeah. So, leave a half hour anywhere you're going to go,
Yep. Very cool. That's a great first story to drive the car just to get gas and already have somebody stop and ask the question.
Oh yeah. We had a guy follow us all the way through town, and he's like told his buddy, I guess, if he pulls in before the Wendy's, we're stopping, we're going to talk to him. But if he keeps going, I don't want to be a stalker, so we'll just let him go, But I happened to pull in to the Wendy's to grab some food, and they pulled in, and they were like, oh, my gosh, we can't say how happy we are we stopped. And it was funny. I laughed because I'm expecting it at this point. But like, we trailed you for 10 miles. And I'm like, okay, anybody else, that would sound kind of creepy,
Right.
But,
what city are you in, or what's that closest city to you?
I'm in a little town called Urbana. The closest city to me I'm like right in between Dayton and Columbus.
Got it. So how many other DeLoreans are in your town or in your area?
I don't think there's a whole lot in the air. Dayton would probably be the closest, that or Columbus. I believe there's a couple that owns one up at Indian Lake, which is about a 35-minute drive from me, but I'm pretty much square one around this area as far as I know.
Very cool.
I heard rumors that an old band director that I went to school with had one sitting in his garage for years, but I've never been able to confirm nor deny it. So
those are fun to try to track down and ask questions and talk to people. And of course, now that you have the car, it makes it easier because people will come out of the woodwork and say, my uncle, my neighbor, my friend, my brother has a car.
Oh yeah. I got one of my best friends. I actually do a YouTube channel with him. He was telling me about, I believe it's his uncle, who, has a lot of nicer, high-end cars. And I guess he had mentioned to him in conversation over, like, Thanksgiving or something that I had a DeLorean. And he's like, oh, yeah, I had one of those for about 6 or 7 years, and I don't know quite why I ever got rid of it. And he's like, I remember, I traded it in on one of those Detasimo Panteras. It just was faster. And I was like, okay. But, yeah, it's kind of crazy. You get people's stories and stuff like that they've either had what their interaction has been with the DeLorean or, if they ever own one. It's a lot of fun,
Yeah.
You know what? It's because me and my buddy Chris, who helps me work on the car, we both said it's like, if I could charge just $1 every time somebody made a flux capacitor joke, the car would be paid off in like a year.
Seriously. One time I had a friend in the car. I can't remember where we were going. We were trying to find parking someplace. Actually, we were near Disneyland. And we pulled into 2 different different parking lot. 2 different people made comments about not driving 88 in the parking lot. I was like, okay.
Oh yeah.
That was pretty good record. So what's your YouTube channel?
Oh, I run a YouTube channel with my friend Ryan, and I quit smoking after I bought the car.
Good idea.
Yeah, it was. Right. Well, my biggest thing was I promised myself I'd quit by the time I was 30. And basically, when I bought the car, I was turning 30 last year in November. And I was like, you know what? I don't smoke in the car. I won't let anybody smoke in the car. So that might be a good motivation.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up picking up vaping to help quit. And I can't even tell you how helpful it's been for me. I feel a lot better, and I just breathe a lot better and everything else. And my buddy, same thing, quit smoking by vaping. So we actually review vape products on YouTube and stuff.
All right.
It's called In Between Two Beards. It's
Say it again.
It's fun.
Say it again.
What? In Between Two Beards.
In Between Two Beards. All right. Hey.
Yeah, because we both have beards. So.
Got it. Well, it's good to plug stuff whenever you get a chance, and who knows, somebody might check that out.
Right. Yeah. No. Definitely. I also run a personal YouTube channel. It's just JDub0567, and that actually focuses on the repairs and any kind of updates I'm doing to the car, almost like a vlog.
Oh, nice.
And I've got it.
Just on the DeLorean or all cars?
Just on the DeLorean for now.
Oh, very cool. Okay.
Well, I've also got a '94 Jeep Wrangler that I'm currently doing a frame swap on that will eventually become the Jurassic Park Jeep.
Nice.
Yeah, so eventually we'll probably do some videos on that, but for now it's just a DeLorean, just whatever. If I did anything to the car that day, or if there was any helpful hints I could give anybody, I just tried to film it. I mean, the video quality is not exactly Spielberg, but
any video helps.
It's just, yeah, exactly. I'm like, you know what? I've had a couple of guys comment on some of the videos like, oh man, I'm so glad you said this. I keep asking on talk and everything. If anybody knew what this was and you actually just said it, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's what it's there for, to help guys, because I know a lot of the videos I make, I'm making them because there's not a video of it on YouTube yet. So,
right. Well, there might be. It's just hard to find them all. On DeLoreanDirectory.com/videos, I've been adding DeLorean videos to that for a couple years. So there's a ton of stuff on there, but they're not organized. It's just a collection of DeLorean videos. Because sometimes I think I've seen all of them, and then I run across 10 of them that are how to replace whatever or how to fix something. And I'm like, I thought that, I'd spent hours looking at the YouTube channels, and I totally missed all these videos from 5 years ago. Right. And yeah, I agree. Having more videos is great. And it sounds like, so you are on dmctalk.org, which is good. That's an awesome site. There's so much information on there it's been there for so many years.
Yeah, I agree. And it's been helpful in a lot of cases. I'm not the contributor that I wish I was on there, but I'm not going to lie. Sometimes the forums get a little bit too back and forth, and I'm like, okay, we started.
I just had that. I was asking for some advice, and clearly somebody either they didn't read my first post, or they just chose to ignore my responses, and so I just said, okay, I'm done. I don't need to keep going back and forth, re-asking the same question. Right. It turns into, what's the size socket you need for this? And it turns into, I hate your mother, Right. And it's like, what? Yeah. Why? I asked a simple question, and it's like, and that's what, it's not just on those, it's on any forum you go on. It's human nature, people, and it's the internet, so people feel emboldened in different ways. You bought the car. It was in Southern California. It sounds like it was from a private owner, not DMC California.
Yeah, it was private owner.
How did you find it? What's your story behind that? Was it a Craigslist, eBay, friend of a friend? How did that happen?
I had literally just started seriously looking for one probably within a month prior to the purchase. And I happened to come across the car on eBay. But the funny thing about it was it wasn't listed as a DMC 12. It was the way he set the ad up or something. If you were to go into eBay Motors and just type in DeLorean, you'll get like the 10 cars that are for sale on eBay right now.
Right.
You did that on this car and it would not show up. I went through like 13 or 14 pages of just parts and stuff before finally I came across this car. Huh. And I was like, that's weird. Usually don't see an automobile this far down the listing. That's usually right at the top. So I opened it up, and like I said, my standards were pretty simple. I had to be either a late model 81, 82, or an 83, 5-speed manual, gray interior.
Just like me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm anti-automatic for any car, so that goes without saying there. But I had to have the black. It's like, man, this thing's already going to be frying me in the summer. I don't need a black interior to help it out. So clicked on it, looked through the pictures. The car looks really clean, and the guy was doing a no reserve auction.
Nice.
I was like, okay. So there was only one bid on it. There was 5 days left on the auction. So he left a phone number in case, because he only had about 15 pictures. And I'm like, I'm going to need more than that. We're going to need detailed frame pictures,
Yep.
I turn into Batman with investigations when it comes to this kind of stuff,
Unless the car is $3,000, then you just buy it unsight unseen.
Right. Exactly. But anyway, I called the guy up, super nice guy. He ended up being a retired car hauler himself.
Wow.
And yeah.
That's random.
And we hit it off. Yeah, I know, right? And we hit it off pretty good. I'm asking him questions about the frame, and, basically I'm like, what's going on? It was a one-owner car. He had known the original owner, and he had let him know that, hey, I'm going to be selling this here soon. The guy was older, just couldn't, had been sitting in a storage unit for 24 years in Southern California.
Wow.
He purchased it, and immediately, I guess they pulled it out of storage and took it to DMC California to have the whole fuel system gone through, because when they parked it, he's like, I know I left 3/4 of a tank of fuel in it.
So, okay, this sounds sincerely just like my car. My car sat in a garage covered with a half a tank of gas in it for 27 years.
Yeah, that seems to be the story I get the most from people. It's either, oh yeah, it's already been restored, or no, it needs a complete new fuel system go through. So he took it through them, and they had to replace the fuel pump. They put a new modern, updated one in there.
Yep.
They did a bench job on the fuel distributor, new accumulator,
yep.
And I think they blew out the lines and the injectors. So
yeah. And cleaned the
now,
tank.
Right. So the car was running, because I called the guy. I'm like, so is the car actually running? Is it running? Is it driving? And he's like, yep, it drives, it stops, it goes, it's smooth. And I'm like, okay. Because I swore up and down I would not buy this car sight unseen.
Sure.
It's such a bad idea in so many different ways to buy a car like this sight unseen. But I was like, oh, man, this is clean. Only had 8,300 original miles on it.
Nice. Now, here's a question. Did you call DMC California to ask their opinion?
I called DMC California after I had purchased it.
Oh, okay.
To make sure if they remember the car. And, of course, they said they didn't. But they could look it up by the VIN number.
Sure.
And I actually got the receipt, and I kind of got a little miffed because the guy was not 100% honest with me about how smooth it ran. When I drove it home, this thing had such a bad miss in it.
Oh, really? Oh.
It shook the whole car. It was that bad.
Well, and now, afterthought, I would say, big deal. You're a gearhead. It can be repaired. You have a DeLorean. That's kind of the part that counts.
That's exactly what I kept repeating myself the whole way home, amongst other few choice words.
Right.
So I called as soon as I got home. I got 2 binders full of stuff on the car. Every repair order.
Nice.
I even have directions that some guy wrote down for the original owner to actually find the dealership.
Nice. Which dealership? Do you remember?
Yeah. I can't. I'd have to look. It's in my folder. I'd have to look in my folder to see where it was purchased from. The only thing I don't have with the car is the window sticker. And apparently, this is a very common trend amongst 83s. A lot of guys who have 83s don't have window stickers for them, and I'm not exactly sure why.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've got the pre-delivery inspection checklist and all that stuff.
I think that DeLoreanmuseum.com has that you can order original window stickers for a lot of cars, depending if they have the, because I guess that they have all the data for them. They don't have my car, so I wasn't able to order one, so I don't know exactly how that works, but you might check that out if you want to get one. Honestly, I actually just recreated my own because I found, another one that was a few VIN numbers off of mine, and I just duplicated it, modified the numbers, and, it's not like I'm selling it as an original. It's a printout from Kinko's, but it's fun to have a quote unquote original sticker.
Oh, absolutely, and I totally agree. And I've actually already been on there to look, and it says right there on the website, 83s, because of misinformation and not good records, that they can't really do anything for the 83s. At least that's what the website says.
Oh yeah, probably by then the cars had gotten distributed and Consolidated had them. Who knows? Well, cool. So you got the car. It was more or less sight unseen, but it went to DMC California, so that's good. At least they had their hands on it for a little while. And you have DMC Midwest nearby. I don't know how far away is DMC Midwest from you.
That's up there in Crystal Lake, Illinois, which is a little bit northwest of Chicago there. I would say it's probably about a 7-8 hour drive.
Ooh, okay. I'm 15-20 minutes away from DMC California, so I could have it towed over. Oh,
man, is that convenient?
It's nice. Well, good and bad.
Yeah.
Nice that they're close, and I know that they can fix things, but I just don't. The guys are nice, but I hate having to go over there because it costs a lot of money every time. I wish I had the garage and the tools to turn the wrenches myself. I grew up working on cars. I've enjoyed it, but there's something I'm a little paranoid about doing work on the car. It's not because I think it shouldn't be touched by anybody but Danny Bodkin at DMC California. I don't have the confidence yet. I've only had the car less than 2 years. I don't want to screw something up and then not be able to enjoy the car.
Right. Well, and see, I'm not going to lie. Like I said, my buddy, he's a master mechanic. That's what he does for a living. And we've both even said, it's not that I'm nervous about working on the car, but not because of the car. I'm nervous because if we don't take a certain step or we break something that we're not supposed to, it might be a $900 flub.
Or,
you know what I mean?
Or a 2-month wait to find the part. You can't just go down to AutoZone or Kragen or whoever is near you and pick up another part for it.
Right.
The angle drive breaks and you lose your speedometer. Yeah, they don't carry that at the local auto parts store.
Right, and it's not like there's any kind of a Band-Aid to fix that. So
not that thing. Yeah.
No. I broke my first. It had the original angle drive in it when I got it, and it broke for the first time in last October. I was on my way back from a show, and I saw the needle bounce once, bounce twice, bounce 3 times, and then it went dead. I'm like, okay, now I'm a DeLorean owner.
Yeah, exactly. So, did you go to DCS last year?
I did not. I wanted to, but I think what happened, there was a good reason why I didn't. Oh, I got pushed out on a load that week. And it's funny because I drove my truck through Springfield, Illinois, but I wasn't able to stop.
Well, sorry to rub it in, but that was my first one. Fantastic. I will absolutely go to any of those in the future. Seeing that many DeLoreans all together, listening to the talks, meeting all the people, it was such a fantastic experience.
Oh yeah,
don't miss the next one. It looks like they have narrowed down. They've got the dates set. They just haven't narrowed down. At least the last I saw, they haven't picked the location. So make the plans for that.
You know what? I was upset I didn't get to go last year, but I was actually more upset that I didn't get to go to the 2014 because it was in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
And it was in my backyard.
Yep. Well, it'll make it back there again.
One of my best friends decided that was the weekend he should get married, and I just happened to be his best man. I'm like, oh, dude, really?
Oh,
really?
No.
You have 365 days a year to pick from, and that's the one you pick.
Well, the wedding,
like,
that's one time. DCS will happen again, so you made the right choice going to doing your friend's wedding.
I don't know, man. Sometimes I wonder, you know?
Don't tell him that.
It was funny because I actually had the task of the Sunday. Obviously, everybody's packing up, leaving Sunday. I had the task of returning all the groomsmen and the grooms' tux back to Columbus, Ohio, where they had rented it from, as one of my best man duties that I decided to undertake. And it's funny because I came back on the interstate heading back towards my house, and which
you're passing
is
DeLoreans.
Probably within, oh man, there's DeLorean here, DeLorean there, DeLorean there. And my brother was in the car with me, and he's like, dude, did you see those DeLorean? I'm like, yep, the DeLorean weekend. Thanks for rubbing it in, bro.
That's funny. Well, that was a DCS. DeLorean Weekend is in October in Vegas.
Right.
Right. I'm sure if you know Kevin Crin, you probably talked about it. That's another fantastic thing to do, and they do it every year around the same time. I don't know how long they've been doing it, but really fun. It's very relaxed. It's free, which is amazing. It's you pay for your own hotel and food and whatever, but there's no cost, and it was really fun. I met lots of people. I met Kevin there. I met a couple other owners that I've stayed in touch with, and I'm excited. In fact, Kevin and I are sharing a house in Vegas this time in October. So
nice.
You should think about going. You could probably get a cheap ticket. Come hang out. You don't need to have a DeLorean there.
Yeah, I would love to do something like that. In fact, me and my wife have been talking about doing, because we actually moved to Prescott, Arizona for 2 years. So we were only 4 hours away from Vegas, and we used to go once a month, maybe twice a month, depending on how cheap we could get a hotel up there.
Yeah.
And it's like, really, all this stuff I'm finding out about after we've moved.
That's the way it works. Well, there's a pretty good collection of DeLoreans in Arizona as well. I met a couple of guys that have driven out here to Southern California for events, and I know some of the DeLorean owners in San Diego. They used to go to the Arizona Club once a month for stuff, so they have a pretty good community there.
That's good. Good. Yeah, like I said, it sounds like fun. I'd love to hit it up one time, just at least once.
Hey man,
I've done it once,
you still got a month and a half. October 5th, something like that. DeLoreanWeekend.com. Go check it out.
Right, I will definitely do that.
So you get the car. It's not exactly as advertised, but I assume you got it tuned up and working the way you want?
Yeah, when I got it back to the house, I pretty much, I'm looking at it, and first thing, Chris says, he's like, I'm thinking plugs and wires, man. They're 30 years old. And I'm like, I know, right?
Oh, they didn't replace those. Wow. Well, hey,
no, never.
I guess
every
depending on the price, fine. You can do that stuff. This isn't. I always say it's not a Fabergé egg. It's still just a car. The engine is not some souped up, specialized, high end. It's just a normal engine. So anybody that has minor skills can do that stuff. You might have to go read DMC talk a little bit to get some of the nuances, but if you're gearheads, then that was probably pretty easy. And hopefully the price was low enough that it didn't matter that they didn't do all the extra stuff. You could do it. Yeah,
the price was where I wanted to be at. I probably paid just a smidge more for the car that I was expecting, opposed to the car that I got. But that was the thing, though. Everything else on this car was perfect. Every panel was straight. The frame, completely untouched. I mean, it was just, but everything was original. Like,
nice.
Literally, when I changed the air filter out, it was a Renault air filter.
Nice.
So, yeah. Well, it ended up, I called, when I went through all the paperwork, I called DMC California to see if they could give me any information on it. And they're like, oh, yeah, okay, we got the thing here, the recommended change out the rubber hoses for the cooling system, recommend change out the actual radiator, recommend plugs, wires, major tune-up, recommend brake hoses.
Sure.
And they also recommended fuel injectors. Apparently, they got it running. The guy who I got it from was like, it's running, right? And they're like, well, yeah, but it needs injectors. He's like, well, I don't need injectors, you know?
Yeah,
so
the new owner does.
Right, so I was like, okay, really wasn't planning on spending like $700 on injectors, but
hopefully that's one of the more expensive parts, though.
It started off that way.
Oh.
The engine and the transmission's actually been pulled out of this car.
But by you or by somebody else before you bought it?
By us. No, we pulled it out.
Wow, awesome.
Willingly.
Yeah, good.
We well, it started off because I already knew when after I replaced all the fuel lines with stainless steel fuel lines, and
nice.
I also replaced all the injectors. Car ran like a dream. I replaced all the brakes because the brakes were so old.
Sure.
Replaced all the brakes, all the brake hoses, and the car was running beautiful. Never had a problem out of it. We enjoyed the entire rest of the summer. up until right about the end of October. The car started having some weird issues with stalling and things like that, so I'm going through it. I'm like, well, it can't be that because they just replaced that, and it can't be this. And so I'm starting to get into the testing phase. Well, basically, the water pump started weeping, and I'm like, okay, you know what that means? Intake's got to come off Valley of Death.
Yep.
So what started out as pulling the intake, and the Valley was, you could tell critters had made their nest there for about 30 years, but it was fairly dry. I actually have a video of that on the YouTube channel, me pulling it, everything.
Awesome.
I was like, all right, well, we got all this off. We might as well change all this while we're at it. So it's like cap, rotor, plugs, wires, water pump, all the cooling hoses need to be changed out, the radiator.
How awesome, though. You got all that done. You did it yourself. Individually, the injectors are the more expensive parts. All those other things, one at a time, aren't that expensive. But when you do it all at once, it adds up. Sure.
Right. It does. So that's basically how it all started. And then my buddy was over, once again, giving me a hand. And he's like, well, the engine's kind of just oxidized. He's like, what's holding it in there? And I'm like, I don't know, emergency brake cable, a couple of wiring harnesses. He's like, why don't we just pull it? And I'm like, I don't know. Why would you want to pull a perfectly good engine that's not doing anything wrong? And he's like, we'll touch it up. We'll make it look pretty and all this stuff. And I was like, all right, if you're going to help me do it, that's fine. That's cool. So
Justin, that is awesome. You guys pulled it out then? Yeah.
Yeah, we pulled the engine and the transmission out, and
you cleaned everything spotless and perfect, I assume.
As good as we could get it without actually hot dipping the aluminum.
Nice. Oh man, that's awesome.
So we had all that apart, and we decided at that point, I'm like, well, we have it all. I'm like, I want to put a performance exhaust on it. I'm like, so I've got it all apart now. I wonder how, how we would go about that. So I actually called Joshua Bankston up there in Akron at DeLorean Performance Industries.
DPI, yeah.
And I started talking to him extensively. And now the car is getting a whole new suspension system.
Oh.
It's getting exhaust. I put performance cams in it. I mean, I powder coated the valve covers and the timing chain cover. It's going to have this car, short of the K-Jet system, is basically going to be new.
Nice.
So it was not the intention at first.
Well, the reality is, it's whatever makes you happy. Then that's what you do. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. It's whatever you want to do with the car, and this is not a $500,000 Mercedes. So have fun with it, enjoy it, and if that's the stuff that you want to do to it, great.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, no, and you know what? It's funny because the first DeLorean I ever drove was actually my car, driving it home from the car hauler, and I'm driving it. I mean, and I was like, oh, okay, some power loss, but as soon as we got the injectors in it and it ran fine, I'm like, I'm not saying it's a fast car.
It's not a fast car.
It's not. Well, and that was I wasn't expecting a fast car, but I'm like, it's not the dog that everybody makes it sound like.
I know. Well, and I say it all the time. People always talk about stage 1, stage 2, doing more, replacing the engine. I'm like, I can get up to 80 very quickly on the LA freeways with no problem. I'm not beating anybody off the line, but I can always get up to 80 really quick. Not from, overpowering and trying to do crazy stuff. The car goes just fine. I'm not going to go 120 miles an hour on freeways.
Right. I mean, I'm not taking this to the local drag strip. I mean, now don't get me wrong, and that was kind of the idea behind the whole cams and the exhaust, and it's basically going to be a stage 2 after it's all said and done. But I'm like, if I could use just enough power to get out of its own way, in the mid area, I'm like, that would make me happy. If I want to drive a fast car, I'll borrow my buddy's Hellcat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny because one of the first car shows that we did not get rained out of, my buddy Chris, once again, you're going to hear his name a lot because he's always helping me. He actually has a '69 Dodge Dart GT.
Nice.
And it's got a little hopped up 318 in it, and it's funny because we were on back roads heading to the show, and he decided to get clever and start passing me and all this other stuff, and I was like, okay, well, we'll try it. You know what? The DeLorean kept up with the 318 Dart GT pretty good. I was pretty impressed.
Nice.
So, but yeah, it's more fun for me. I mean, and that was one reason why I wanted to do the suspension upgrade, because I'm like, man, this thing, with the right suspension, this thing could handle like a mother.
Yeah. So you put in the adjustable suspension, I assume, the European ones? Or did you do DPI suspension?
It's the DPI suspension.
Okay.
It's the Spec 1 suspension that Josh offers. It's got the QA1 coilovers.
Okay. And did you lower the front end, or did you raise the rear end?
The front end will be lowered to the European spec when I get the car back from Bankston.
Got it.
I think the rear end will be lowered about a half inch from stock, and the front end will be put down to where the European spec is. So it'll ride really nice, I think.
Got it. So you've done a fair number of, I don't know, I guess major modifications. Anything else you've done? You've significantly changed the car?
No, everything I've done is below the skin, because that was the biggest thing that I wanted. I'm like, I don't want anything.
Yeah.
I don't want anything exterior or interior wise to be altered.
Right.
I want it to be all underneath. And it sucks because you put a lot of money into this car and it's like, you can't even see it. but you know, it's the, you know, I mean, no anything to anybody that wants to do what they're going to do with the outside of the car.
Yeah, his barely looks like a DeLorean anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, I wanted it all to be beneath the skin of it. So everything inside is perfect. I'm going to have to do a headliner job here probably within the next year. It's just barely starting to droop in spots, but
that was the only thing that I had DMC do other than drivetrain. Because the same thing, I wanted it. My car looked fantastic, interior, exterior. There is a little damage on one panel, but the headliner was just drooping, and it was yellow, and it looked terrible. That was the only thing that they did, and super glad I did that. So it's too bad you didn't know about it ahead of time to just have DMC do it, because that's a tough job. Totally worth having them do it, but now I'm so happy.
Yeah, I agree. There's a little discoloration on the headliner from just the age of it. But I mean, and the doors and everything, it's not like you got a headliner drooping on your head. It's more said just little bubbles in the center that are, it's like, most people don't notice them, but I know they're there, so they got to be changed.
Oh, okay. Well, mine was fully fallen down, and you know, it was hanging. Yeah. So it wasn't just bubbles; it was fully hanging.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, mine's not quite that bad. At least not yet. I'm hoping I can get at least another year out of it before I have to put that in there. So
yeah, you put money elsewhere. But hey, when you go to car shows, people are gonna love looking when you open up the louvers and the engine cover. They're gonna love looking at that engine.
Oh yeah. And in fact, probably next year at some point or another, I'm probably gonna end up ditching the K-Jet and going with an EFI system as well. So.
That you know how to do that. So
I'm not doing the work on this one. That's going to probably be Josh up there at DTI. Yeah. I'm mechanically inclined. My buddy's mechanically inclined, but I will be the first one to admit this is probably the most difficult fuel system to diagnose I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so off of the mechanical stuff, what does your what does your wife think about the car? What did she think about the car when you decided to buy it? And what does the rest of your family think about the car?
Wow, that's a loaded question. All right.
That's why I asked it.
Yeah, we'll take it. We'll take it one at a time. My wife does not like the car.
Because?
Because I'm not 100% sure. Either it's because I burned her out on it before I even owned it.
Right.
Or it could be because she's a Mopar girl, she's a Jeep girl, and she likes the muscle cars and everything. So it's kind of funny because I'm a huge muscle car guy. If you were to meet me on the surface and I did not tell you my love of DeLoreans, you would be like, oh, okay, this is the kind of guy that would go buy a 69 Hemi Charger or something like that, and he bought a DeLorean.
Right.
It's, and
Out
it's
of character.
like, well, right, exactly. So, and I'm like, well, that story goes back way, because I've got really big ties to these cars, and just, we can get to those stories in a minute, but, yeah, she just, it's just a little low, so I know, because she has back problems, she sometimes getting in and out of the car she's not crazy about.
Got it.
But I think, honestly, if I was a betting man, I would say it's probably because we can't even go to the gas station without a million people paparazziing her.
She's not excited about that. All right.
Well, it's not so much that. It's fun at 4:00 in the afternoon. It's not fun at 10:00 at night. You forgot to get fuel before the car show. Now you need fuel to get home, and you stop, and you're tired, your feet hurt, you're sunburned, and all you want to do is go home, and your wife wants to go home, and you got to be there for an additional 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I try my best to be the nice guy, answer the questions.
Good.
I try my best to do that without being, but there are days, you probably know, it's like,
sure,
guys, I gotta go.
Yep.
Or
so, I've also had the people that, even though I'm driving the DeLorean and I own it, they insist that my information is wrong. No. The car was not built in Ireland. It was built right here in Southern California. Okay, hey, nice talking to you. I'm late. I gotta go. I cut those ones short because there's no convincing somebody that I know about the car.
No, I had a guy at a car show that started to get one level before, like, getting in a screaming match with me about how I was wrong, that's a GM block. And I'm like, dude, it's not that difficult, man. Like, Wikipedia, it's probably right on your phone.
Right.
And he's just like, no, you don't, that's a GM block, he made the GTO. And I'm like, dude, okay, you know what? You're right. It's a GM block. I'm going to walk away now.
Yep,
walk
exactly.
away. Always. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, the people that are, that don't have all the correct information or heard a rumor, when you tell them this, like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense, But you get that one guy
that's positive.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay, so other than your wife, what about your friends and family? What do they think of the car?
It's they love it for the most part. My dad is kind of nonchalant about the car. It's not the car he would chose.
Sure.
He has been telling me since I was a little kid, and I saw the Back to the Future films the first time, that I'm like, I want that car, and Dad's like, no, you don't. and so he doesn't pay, he doesn't offend me or anything. It's just he's just not super excited about the car like I am. But most of my friends and stuff, you take them for a ride in it and they see the attention you get, and they're just like, they light up. They're like, man,
it's fun.
I can't even believe it.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's a blast. I have so much fun in that car.
Yeah, and I think that us being the next generation of owners, I can't imagine anybody now, any of us, the next generation of owners, buying the car, wanting to not talk to people and not be friendly. I've met a handful of older owners who've had the car for 20 plus years, and some of them they terribly dislike Back to the Future. They hate the jokes and the comments. They don't like talking to people. They're not exactly nice to people when they talk about the car. I think that,
oh, wow.
That's okay. Everybody's allowed to be their own person, but I think going forward, I can't imagine any new owners buying a DeLorean and having that same personality. I think we love the car and we love sharing the car, and I think that's part of the magic of the car.
I totally agree. I mean, I get people that, I don't know what it is, man. It just, I can remember 3 distinctual situations when I was younger that just brought me into this. Funny story. So when I was younger, I think I was born in 86. So I wasn't even born when the movie originally came out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And there are 3 movies that I can remember when I was a kid: Back to the Future, Batman, and Superman. Those are the first 3 movies I can remember actually watching with my dad. And this is back probably, I don't know, very early 90s. And this is back when VHS tapes were still quite expensive, 25, 35, 45 bucks for a VHS tape.
Yep.
So we had this little rental store down the way in our little town where I grew up in. And every time we go in there, Dad, Back to the Future. Dad, Back to the Future. Dad, Back to the Future. And it's funny because I remember the last time we rented it, my dad like grabbed the tape and he's like, you know, Justin, I can do this movie better than Michael J. Fox at this point. You know? He's like, just memorize the lines. Well, and so we go up to the register, and the small town, so everybody knows everybody. My dad knew the guy, and he's like, oh, hey, how you doing, Fred? And he's like, oh, here you go. And he's like, Back to the Future. He's like, Freddie, really? Again? And he's like, well, you got my son here. And he's like, Freddie, I don't have the heart to charge you for it anymore. Here. So that's how we got our first copy of Back to the Future.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So in Springfield, Ohio, when I was little, there was an old car dealership that had been abandoned years ago, and somebody owned it, but you know, it was not in service anymore. But there was probably a showroom big enough for 5, maybe 6 cars, depending. And inside that showroom, there was a pink Cadillac, a DeLorean, an old pickup truck, and a Bronco.
Wow.
And there's like old rolls of carpet laying all over the cars and everything. But every time we came into Springfield, I'd be like, Dad, can we stop and see the DeLorean?
Nice.
And I couldn't tell you anything about it, whether it was gas flap hood, whether it was.
No, you don't know the difference as a kid. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There was that, and, you know, it was just like, Dad, I'm going to own that car. And he's like, you don't want to own that one. That one's garbage. And I'm like, okay. So there was that, and, I mean, I remember the first time I saw one, it was funny because when you're a kid and you watch the movies, you don't distinguish the car from the movie car.
Yeah.
And it was funny because we were at a car show, and we just kind of happened to walk on one, and it kind of looked like, you know, lights shining down on it. I was like, oh, my gosh. You know, and I went running up to it. My dad had to sprint after me. He's like, don't touch that car. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, it's the Back to the Future car. And then I started looking at it, and I'm like, wait a minute, where are the time circuits? Where's the capacitor? Where's the vents out the back? And that's when my dad finally told me, well, this is just a car. That was for the movie. And I'm like, mind blown. I didn't even know there was. This is a real car, you know?
How funny.
And
well, when you
never got to meet the owner or anything.
When you come visit LA, you got to go to the Peterson Automotive Museum where they have the hero car, the A car that was.
Yes.
It's beautiful. They did a great job restoring it. I was there several times that week when they unveiled it, and there was a big party, and it was pretty cool. So beautiful car. You gotta visit.
Yeah. It's definitely on my bucket list. I want to see that car in person. It was funny. Well, I actually had pre-ordered the Blu-ray at a time, you know, with the restoration project of the A car, and I got it in the mail, and my wife and me just happened to be coming home at the exact same time, so, you know, she had already brought dinner and everything, and we sat down, and she's like, so we're going to watch. I'm like, I don't know what you're going to watch, but I'm watching this. Your vote does not count tonight.
She goes, great. In the bedroom, watch it on your own.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, like I said, but it's just those little experiences like that, you know, just kind of.
You know, we're new owners, and I'm excited for the next 10 years of taking care of this car because it's already been magic. For me, a year and a half. I love it. People love the car. Makes people happy. Smiles. Everybody has great experiences. Generally, people don't come up and complain and say what a terrible car it is. Whatever the truth might be out there, people just enjoy it, and it brings good memories. So that's
right.
We've got hopefully many more years of enjoying it and sharing with people. Oh
yeah. I unless unfortunate events occur, like that might be another reason why my wife hates the car, because I told her, she's like, you know, you bought this car and everything. She's like, so, you know, what are you going to do about garage space? And so I'm like, well, I have the garage, but obviously, you know, she gets one stall for her car, you know, that's fair. And I'm like, well, I guess my car's going outside. And she's like, well, don't you think we ought to like think about maybe like doing, because we have the boat. And I'm like, well, the boat's the boat. I could buy another boat, you know. You know, she's like,
but you guys,
what? I'm like,
you live in Ohio. I imagine you have a little bit of property. Go spend a couple bucks and build another outside garage.
it's exactly what's on the next to-do list once
Good.
the car gets put back in commission, is to get another garage so where we could put like the boat,
Well,
another couple of cars in there.
you
and
put
stuff.
until you build it, you put the DeLorean in the garage, you put the boat outside, and you wrap it up, and then you build the garage
Right.
around it.
Right, exactly. Well, she didn't like the answer when I told her, you know, I'm like, you do realize if I lose my job, the boat goes first, right? Maybe even the house. I don't know yet. We'll cross that bridge when we get to
Yeah,
it. But
exactly.
like I said, these might be all things leading up to why she doesn't like the car.
That could be.
So,
So you've had the car a year and 10 days. What's the furthest you've driven it? How far have you taken it away from home?
would be Akron to visit DPI.
How far is that?
About 180 miles north.
Oh, okay. A couple hours, two and a
And
half.
yeah, about 150 miles, 180 miles, depending on where you're leaving from.
And you drove it there and back with, I'm guessing, your buddy Chris?
Actually, it was just me. I actually had gotten off work early that day. I called DPI and I was like, "Hey, look, I was going to come up," and so because he said when I got a chance, bring the car up and I could pick up some parts from him and stuff. And so I drove the car up. Everything was running pretty good on it. Drove the car back, and as soon as I drove the car back, that's when the water pump started weeping, and I was like, "Well."
Oh, better it
Time to
happened
put
when
it
you
away.
got home.
Right. I'm like, yeah, it made the trip. I'm not going to lie. I like to trust the car, but my knuckles were kind of white that whole drive. I'm like, something's
Yep.
going to break. I don't know what it is, but some 30-year-old part's going to be like, not today, bro.
Exactly. Well, hey, I'm guessing you saw the pictures online. Jay Shetland got rear-ended by an ambulance and totaled his car in Utah.
I saw that.
Yeah,
Such a shame.
terrible. And luckily his wife is okay. He's got some health issues from it. But prior to that, just not a couple months before that, he drove from Salt Lake City, Utah, to DMC, California, with only one radiator fan working and a broken
Ooh.
thermostat.
Wow.
And I'm like, that he has more guts than anybody. I would not drive that car that far with that kind of problem. Luckily, he had a mechanic in the car with him, but still, it's like I've heard stories
Right.
about people blowing their DeLorean engines because they drove it 7 miles without water going through it, and boom, they're screwing up the engine. So that was a lot of guts. He didn't have a problem. He made it. Everything worked out. DMC California fixed everything, but it's good that the water pump went out after you got back home.
Yes, very much so. Yes, like I said, it was that was like at the very end of October. It was at the point where it's like, this thing was going in the garage within the next couple of weeks anyway for the winter.
Right. I forget. You guys, see, California is awesome, man. Like, we drive the cars year round. We do car shows all the time. Ohio, yeah, you get cold and winter and rain and snow, and I've just been learning that in talking with Kevin. He's like, "Oh no, it's winter.
Yeah.
Everybody puts the cars away." I'm like, "Oh man, I guess that's nice because you can work on the cars, but to not be able to enjoy it
as
all
long
year
as your
round."
garage is heated.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? Believe it or not, you obviously you're not going to drive a DeLorean in the snow or the ice if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
Even the rain. But believe it or not, I think the biggest thing out here is it's the salt. The salt will literally just destroy the car from the inside out.
And you know what? I wasn't even thinking that, and that is it, because they salt the roads everywhere out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that problem in Southern California.
Yeah. Well, and that was one thing I was excited about when I found the car. I'm like, well, it is a Southern California car, and the frame was just perfect on it. I'm like, and I intend to keep it that way because I really don't have the money anytime soon to put a stainless steel frame underneath of it.
So, Gordon Carpenter, owner in San Diego, 10987, I think he's second or third owner, but basically he's had it for 30 plus years, all in California, all in San Diego. So the frame should have been perfect, but at some point years ago, he had a master cylinder brake master cylinder leak, and that fluid got onto the frame to the point where he did not like how much rust he saw, and it wasn't massive, but it did damage to the frame. So he just did a frame off restoration and had him take the body off and strip the frame down and sand it, clean it, and have it repainted or dipped or something, and he had a lot of work done to it just because. So it has, sometimes it's not the salt or the weather. It could be that fluids will heat up that steel just as much.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the big things. But I mean and that's the other thing about the 83s I'm noticing. Apparently they got a black, almost like a I don't want to say like a primer, but it's almost got like a tar consistency to it. And undercoating, I guess, is the word you want. But it's pretty much, it's spread over the entire length of the bottom of the car. Because when I first saw it, I'm like, my God, this thing's dirty. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not coming off. And I started doing some research, and I found out, 83, apparently they put some kind of undercoating on the 83s, which works great if you're trying to prevent rust. If you're wanting the car to be pretty, though, a pretty great frame, it ain't there. It's like you can scrub all you want. It ain't coming off,
Interesting.
Like I said, I don't want to drive it in the winter. It's not a car that I want to go off-roading it in.
Nope. It's a good weather car.
Right.
So you said you had around 8,000 miles, 8,500 miles when you first got it. How many miles do you have on it now?
Yeah, I purchased it with 8,300. It now has 10,200 and some change.
Got it. So just a little over 2,000 miles in a year.
Not even. Keep in mind, we talked in the beginning, and I meant to say something earlier. Of the year that I've owned it, the year and 10 days that I've owned it, I've only driven it about 3.5 months.
Got it. Well, partly weather and partly maintenance.
Maintenance has been, obviously it went in the garage for winter, and obviously what was supposed to be completed for the winter obviously turned into all this extra stuff, which then turned into spring, which then turned in, we'll have it done by 4th of July, which is now like, okay, I'm hoping I have this thing back in August because back in October, because I have a little, I have a supposed booking for it.
Nice.
And I run a little business out of the house where I rent the car out. So
Good.
Well, and a lot of that was not by anybody. That was just more or less for me being in my garage working on it. It's just between my buddy Chris having a baby over the late winter, and just life problems, things just the car is just easily, especially when you're doing stuff to it, it gets easily put on the back burner,
See, and that is, for me, that's one of the things is, and I just recently had this conversation. I took the radio almost all the way out because I'm going to send it over to France. There's a guy in France that will add Bluetooth to the original Craig or ASI radio. I've
seen that. That looks really cool.
Yeah, I'm. Long story short, I actually, that was one of the first major things I personally have done to the car, and of course I got stuck with some wires, but I don't want to make any other changes. My big concern is I don't want to do something to the car that stops me from enjoying it. And having the radio out, not a big deal. But if I have to take the whole center console out to get the radio out, depending on how hard it is to put the console back in. If I send it to France, and I think he said, it's a 2 to 3 weeks for the whole thing, I'm probably not going to put the console back in, just to have to take it back out again, which means during that time, I'm less likely to drive the car or take it places. So, again, I got to figure out what's going to happen next.
Right.
I'm hopeful, literally, when we're done with this call, I'm going to go out to the car and do a little bit more soft digging to try to find the connectors for those last 5 wires. I couldn't see them, I couldn't feel them before, but now the guy from France and a couple other people on DMC Talk have talked about it, and there's more pictures that those wires have D connectors on them, so I just need to find them and take them apart, and then I should be good. But I just don't want to. Okay. I don't want to do that where I have the car stuck in the garage because I'm working on it, and then 6 months go by and I've never gotten back to finish it. I want to be able to jump in the car, go someplace.
And I completely agree with you. And the only reason that this job was not commissioned to somebody on my end was cost. It was like the parts are expensive enough. I've got enough knowledge to where we can do it. And like I said, had it just been the original, like, 6 or 7 items that we had initially started out to repair and or replace, the car would have been done probably by June. But now that we got all this other stuff on it, it was like, well, you know,
you gearheads.
I can't even tell you how painful it's been that I did not have the car this season to enjoy. There were car shows that I wanted to go to, but I'm like, the end result is going to be so nice, so pretty, that I think it'll be worth it at the end.
Well, I don't know if he has pictures posted online, but look for 10987. When he had the frame off done, he had a bunch of work done to his engine, and he had some stuff chromed, and amazing, beautiful looking engine now, and the whole inside of the tub right there in the engine bay, clean, pristine. It is quite amazing. So I'll have to get him on here and have him talk about the frame off, because he's had the car for like I said 30 plus years, and he knows the car, and that'd be good to get that story. So that'd be great. You said that you were a member of your local club for a couple of years before you bought the car. Which club is it? The DeLorean Club of Ohio?
DeLorean Club of Ohio. I basically, there was one single moment that kind of jump started the car again. I mean, it had always been in the back of my head for a long time that I wanted one. Obviously, it's like, oh yeah, everybody wants one, but to actually pull out a checkbook is just a completely different story.
Yep.
Exactly. So we went up to Detroit, Michigan, and there was a weekend where the Walter P. Chrysler Museum, it was going to be the last weekend that the Walter P. Chrysler Museum was going to be open. And I told my wife, at the time fiance, I actually called my mom, and I was like, hey, look, we're going up to Detroit. Would you and Mitch like to go? And she's like, oh yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. And I'm like, well, I'm going because this is the last, because I'm a huge Mopar guy. I'm big into Mopar.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I've got to go to the Chrysler Museum before it closes.
Yeah.
So we said, okay. So Saturday, we left out early. We went up to Detroit, which is not bad. It's about a 3-hour drive from here. And there was a massive car show there. That was the big thing. They're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have just a bunch of vendors out there selling food. We're gonna have giveaways. We're gonna have a DJ. It's gonna be a big car show. Everybody's welcome. Obviously, being the Walter P. Chrysler Museum, 95% of all the cars were Chrysler products, and that's fine. I had a lot of fun. And we went in, enjoyed the museum. So we started coming out to the car show, and I walk around this corner, and there sits a DeLorean. I'm like, Now, it had probably been 5 years since I had seen one, like, out in the wild, you know. I mean, and up close at that.
Yeah.
So I remember going up to it and looking at it. I'm like, oh, man, it's a great interior, 5-speed. And at that time, I had a general knowledge of the car outside the movies. Obviously, I'd done my own research at that point. And this was probably 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And I was like, okay, you know what? I got to own one of these. I have to own one of these. I've wanted one forever. I'm going to buy one. Luckily, we were able to walk back by the car on the way out of the car show, and the owner just happened to be coming up. And I'm like, oh, man, are you the owner? He's like, oh, yeah, hi, how you doing? And can't remember his name for the life of me. Nice guy. Lived local there in Detroit area. And I was like, man, you know, and I just started asking him questions, and he was so good about it. And I felt terrible because I'm like, man, I do not want to hold this guy up, but he was good about it, you know, and answering all my questions. And finally, he's like, let a few more people leave here, and I'll open the doors, and you can sit in and all that stuff, you know.
Nice.
And I'm like, oh, my gosh, yes, so much yes.
And your fiance is going, I want to go.
Right. I'm like, you can just sleep in the car on the way home. I'm chilling here. I'm going to sit in the DeLorean. So it's going to happen. That's what's going to happen.
Rare opportunity.
You can leave, but I'll have to call Uber or something. I don't think Uber was around then. Anyway, so I sat in the car because I had never really got to sit in one with, you know, because I'm not the skinniest guy in the world. So I'm like, I'm a big guy. And I'm like, I don't even know if I'll fit in this car, you know. So the guy was nice enough. Let me sit in. I'm like, oh my God, this has got to be one of the most comfortable cars I've ever sat in my life.
Yeah.
Like, it was cool that it didn't turn into one of those never meet your hero situations where it's like, oh, no, this ain't going to work. Sorry.
Yeah.
That was a nice thought while it lasted. Yeah, he had such a genius idea for everybody that asked all these questions and everything. He said he was walking around, he was seeing the museum, so he didn't really sit around the car a whole lot that day. But he actually had flyers printed up that looked like replicas of the Save the Clock Tower flyers, and on the back, he had printed up all the information. DeLoreans were built between this year and this year. There were this many made. It was built in Northern Ireland, Belfast. I'm like, this is ingenious.
Okay, I am stealing that idea because I have blue photocopies of the Save the Clock Tower in the car at all times. I hand them out when I see people. I even had postcards made. I am totally, the next time I make copies, I'm putting the information on the back because that is such a fun way to share with people. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I thought that, and I'm gonna end up doing the same thing myself because I'm like, man, this is great. It doesn't take up a lot of room. It's not super expensive. I mean, like the Hot Wheels, I love to give away the Hot Wheel cars, but they're not as in abundance as they used to be.
And still, you're talking about 5 cents for a photocopy or 8 cents double-sided versus even $2. You know, that's a big difference.
Yes, very much so. So yeah, like I said, that basically happened.
Nice.
And from there, the guy was really good about it, you know, and he's like, oh yeah, he's like, have a great one, man. I hope you get one. He's like, blah, blah. And I'm like, and that was something in the back of my head was like, all right, now it's on.
Yeah. So that was it. So that was 5 years ago, and that kind of flipped your switch.
I want to say it was actually closer to about 3 or 4 years ago now that I'm thinking about it. So the following year would be 2016, last year. And that was the other thing, too, with 2015. When I was doing my research on the cars,
the prices were going up.
Went so insane. I'm like, no, I'm not spending $70,000 on a $25,000 car.
Right. Well, the numbers are going back up there now. I don't know if people are selling them for that, but I keep seeing these cars getting listed at $60,000 and $70,000, and they're not pristine cars. So, good luck.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, there's a place up there in Troy, Michigan, I believe it's called Vanguard Motor Sales. They've got a wide stripe DeLorean right now, and don't get me wrong, it is a beautiful car. He's won $86,000 for this. I'm like, dude, you're wow. Borderline like Viper used Lamborghini money now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
You're getting ridiculous.
But some people are gonna they have the cash and they're just gonna buy it because they've always wanted it. Good luck. Good for the people selling it if they can get that kind of money for it. Great, but
right.
That wasn't me. I was in the same boat of like, well, I've always wanted one. Save. Start looking, and I had been looking for a couple of years, and then Back to the Future Day came around. The prices went up and up and up, and I just wasn't finding the car I wanted. I'd basically given up, and went to the Back to the Future Day events at Pointy Hills Mall, which was, I went out there 3 times that week, and it was a lot of fun. But I said, okay, I'm done. I'm not gonna be able to find a DeLorean, and I started looking for the blue VW van, which is also just as amazingly overpriced and hard to find. But at least it's not,
right.
It's not ultra rare and fancy. And then 3 weeks after that, randomly, on my birthday, found my car on Craigslist. So it was
awesome.
Unexpected after I'd given up. And I hate the cliche when people talk about when you're dating. It's like, well, you'll find the person you're going to fall in love with when you stop looking. I'm like, whatever. I always dismiss it. But that's what happened with the DeLorean. I mean, I've been looking for a couple years, had a couple cars that I almost bought, or that I really was interested in, and then by the time I got there, they'd already been sold. So I gave up, and then 3 weeks later, owned a DeLorean.
Yeah, I got really discouraged 2015 because the car prices were so ridiculous, and I'm like, well, it's just a fad.
Yeah.
What my theory was that happened after that, though, you had everybody and their mother buying DeLoreans, and I think they know they overpaid for them, and now it's like, well, I don't want it anymore, but I'm not going to take a loss on it, so I'm going to sell it for $50,000.
It's like rabbits around Easter.
Right. And so when 2016 came along, I noticed right around February time, I guess you would say, prices started coming back down, but they never fully came back down the way they were in 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah, I told her, I'm like, look, I'm buying a DeLorean this year. I don't care if I have to take out a second mortgage. I am going, because if I keep making excuses on why I can't buy one, I'll never buy one.
Yeah, and then there's going to be fewer and fewer out there, and the price is going to go up just simply because of age, time, car accidents. Cars that can't be economically restored. So
right, and that was my other logic in the whole debate in 2016 was like, well, the prices have not gone back down to 2014 prices, but to be honest, I don't think they ever will be again. So I'm like, I need to get on this train before it leaves the station.
And come on, every classic car. I mean, if you have a classic Pinto, they're worth more now than they were when they came out. So the classic car is going to go up, and a unique car like a DeLorean from, that everybody recognizes from Back to the Future, it's always going to be in demand. The next generations are going to want it. It looks cool. It's fun. So, yeah, I think that the prices are never, ever going to go back down to the pre-2010 prices. They're just going to keep going up.
No, I don't. I agree. I don't see them going down.
Fantastic hearing your stories. I'm happy that you finally got your dream car, just like I did. I usually will wrap up by asking just a couple simple questions. First is, what is your other dream car? And the second is, assuming the DeLorean was running right now, let's pretend that go back to when you were driving it. What's in the trunk when you're driving it out of the garage?
Oh, okay. My other dream car, I mean, I think the DeLorean takes the cake for that one. But the next car that I will purchase, if finances allow me, will be a '69 Dodge Charger RT. Nice.
All right.
Either that or a Turismo Pantera, man. I'm a gearhead. I can't pick one.
All right, that's okay. And what is in the trunk of your DeLorean?
I'm assuming by trunk you mean the underneath the bonnet.
Yeah.
Okay. I was about to say, well, what's in the trunk, man. It's the engine. No, the bonnet. Yeah, that's a good question. Before it got shipped up to DPI.
Yeah, I remember when you were driving.
Obvious. Yeah. I had to think for a second. I couldn't remember what I had in there. Yeah, I have the spare tire, obviously. I have a small toolkit in there. It's a little Craftsman toolkit just for basic screwdrivers, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I also I have up until now, and it won't be in there now, but I actually have the original, those ugly 80s fuzzy seat covers that came from the factory or from the dealerships as an option.
Yeah.
Yep. Those were in there for the longest time. And I actually just took those out before I started work on the car. But I think that, and just a handful of cleaning supplies.
Okay. Interesting. That's the thing that I'm always curious about. If I kept carrying around bottles of every kind of cleaning and multiple towels and rags, and I finally went, I'm not going to be cleaning this car at this level when I'm out and about. So I took most of that stuff out. Now I have a couple of cloths and some, glass cleaner, and that's about it. So, all right.
Right. Is that what you use to polish it up for a car show? Is Windex?
No. I am following the lead of Don Stager, who was he was a longtime DeLorean mechanic here in Southern California. He takes his DeLorean through the automatic car washes, and his comment is, the brushes in the car wash turn the right direction, so they're going with the grain of the car. If the guy that has been working on DeLoreans for 30 plus years trusts taking a DeLorean through an automatic car wash, I've done that 50-50. Otherwise, I get soap and water and brush cloth and wash the car. I know there's people out there that swear that, you just WD-40 or oil or Windex and it's fine, but I just don't think the car looks clean enough when I take it to a show, like when I just do that. So I like running it through a car wash and cleaning it, and then I'll wipe down, do the windows, and then if there's spots and fingerprints, I'll use the Windex to get rid of those. But I don't clean the whole car that way.
Okay. Actually, I gotta give credit. I'm just curious because I always ask that amongst other owners, like, what are their cleaning methods?
So do I.
And it's funny because I actually have to coin this one to my wife. We were out there. Obviously, I'll wash it with soap and water, and I don't mind taking it through the car wash. It doesn't bother me, like you said. The brushes will spin correctly where you don't have to worry about it. But when I got it home, I'm like wiping it down, just any little spots from the water, and I'm like, it still just doesn't look like polished. You know what I mean? It still has a kind of a dull look to it. So my wife was like, well, hold on a second. So she goes in the house, she comes back out, and she hands me my oven cleaner,
Yep.
which is for stainless steel.
Yep.
And we literally sprayed the oven cleaner, just the Walmart oven stainless steel cleaner on there, and I'm telling you, it works.
Yeah.
Great.
So here's my thought on that, and I can't say that I've proved this yet, but your car sat for 24 years, mine sat for 27 years. The grain just got full of dust. I still have not done a deep cleaning on my car, but my belief is that I need to do a deep cleaning, and the two things that I have researched and asked a ton of owners and read online, I bought a bottle of Bartender's Keeper, I think is what it's called. It's kind of it's kind of a thick, kind of feels like thick Comet, liquid Comet.
Right.
And it's not abrasive, but it's got some kind of abrasive in it. And a lot of people say that works great cleaning the grain of the car. And I think between that and just using a bristle brush to get into the groove, that I'll be able to clean it out. Because as you know, when you're by yourself at the gas station, people think the car looks amazing. But then there's an owner here, Roland Hoffman, actually, and also Linda, who they have been meticulous with their cars. They look amazing. So when my car is parked next to either of theirs, I'm embarrassed because my car looks filthy because it's parked next to these pristine, beautifully clean cars. That's just because I haven't cleaned mine. When mine's by myself, everybody thinks it looks great. So I really want to get out there and spend the time to do it, and I still haven't done it. I've been saying this for months. I'll get out there to do it, and then I'll keep it up after that. But I'm excited to see how the Bartender Keeper works. So
yeah, definitely update everybody with that because I'm kind of curious because I already know what I know. Eventually, I will need a hood. Probably within the next 3 years. You can already see where the X is starting to make its ugly appearance.
Oh.
And me and Bankston were scratching our heads over this one because we can't quite figure it out. But our theory at this point, there is just the ever slightest so much of pitting at the very, very bottom towards the front bumper cover of the hood where there's some very light pitting. Now, you can't even see it unless I point it out to you and you're looking at it in just the right light.
Yeah.
But I know it's there. And if you look at the way the shape of the pitting goes, it almost looks like some kind of sap or something fell on the car and they didn't scrape it off. They just wiped it down and it just smudged all over the place. And that is exactly the shape of where the pitting is. So I know I'll need a new hood eventually. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that when I get a new hood for it, I will probably go ahead and just pay to have the car completely regrained.
Sure. Get it all match and nice, clean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Regrained, it'll all be polished, it'll look great, and I can just upkeep it from there. Like I said, it won't have 30 years or 24 years worth of dust sitting in the in the grain. And like I said, I'll probably get the rims powder coated at that point and stuff. But you know, like I said, nobody else can notice it unless I point it out. But it's
right.
There.
It's hey, if you have an original 57 Chevy, you see every nick and chip where nobody else sees it because they just like looking at the car.
Right.
So.
Right.
Well, you're in the right place. You're in Ohio, again, great community of DeLorean owners. You're in the right place. You got a lot of good resources there, and I hope that you keep up with your local club, hit a bunch of events, and I hope that you'll keep updating people online. I will check out your YouTube channel, and I'll put it up on this episode as well. So
okay, cool.
Any last comments or anything you'd like to share?
I mean, like I said, man, I anybody that's ever wanted one, I mean, there's really nothing quite like it, and I think that's one of the coolest parts about the car. I live in a small town, and you can't even imagine the looks that you get going down the road in a small town with a DeLorean, because everybody does a double take. Like, I know what it looked like, but there's no way that could be here in a farming community.
Right.
So, you know, and you know what? I meet so many nice people. I mean, you have that 1% that you'd rather not talk to, but for the most part, you meet great people. You get to hear a lot of stories. And I don't want to say I love the attention that I get, but I love being able to give people the opportunity to see this car.
Well, you kind of hit on it. It's not that you like the attention. It's what I started saying 8 months ago is I like to share the car with people. That's it. It makes people happy. So it's not that I want the attention or that I like being somebody, and it's not even me. It's about the car. It's about sharing it with other people. We're all temporary owners of these cars anyway. That at some point we will get sick and die of old age, or we're going to get tired of the car, or who knows what. Someone else is going to take the car after us.
Oh, yeah.
Unless it gets totaled. So we're just taking care of the car for now. Why not share it, make more people happy?
Yeah. This is just our tenure with the car, you know? So, I agree with that, man. But yeah, I'm glad we were able to do this, man. I'm like I said, I'm a big fan of the show. I hope you're able to get more people to come on here and do it. But I appreciate you just spending some time and hearing my stories and us just chatting about cars for a little bit.
Thank you so much for being on. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I will say to everybody listening, thanks again for listening to another episode of DeLorean Talk. Be sure to check out DeLoreanTalk.com if you haven't. Take a look at DeLoreanDirectory.com, and if you want your own VIN page, check out the DeLorean census on there. Follow DeLorean Talk on Facebook, Twitter, and most of those social media sites, and give your opinions and questions to us by emailing comments@DeLoreanTalk.com. Stay tuned and drive safe.